Hi everyone, hope everyone's having a good morning. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I think we're going to try and do something a little bit different. This is my first time moderating, so appreciate everyone's here. This is a momentous moment for me. Thanks so much. And as was kindly alluded to there, I am one of the founders of Flight 3 and Zebu Live. This panel is titled, Has GameFi Killed Web3 Gaming? Are we teetering on the edge of a precipice? Today, we find ourselves amidst the aftermath of a seismic shift in the gaming landscape. In 2021, the rise of GameFi bore promises of a new era, but now we stand in a landscape that some might call anticlimactic. The question before us is not of a looming revolution, but rather whether the grand visions of GameFi were indeed just that, visions. Web3 technology and gaming have intertwined since their inception. Vitalik Buterin, inspired by the horrors of centralization in his World of Warcraft days, was driven to lay the groundwork for Ethereum, and now we find ourselves at a crossroads, shadows of doubt cast over the once bright horizon. I'm Henry, as I mentioned. I'm co-founder and chief creative officer at Web3 marketing agency Flight 3 and of Zebu Live. And with a decade's experience in AAA game development and publishing, I'm honored to guide you through this thought-provoking conversation. Together, let's navigate the truths that lie at the heart of this matter. I've got notes. With me today, I hope you won't mind me introducing you. I know sometimes people introduce themselves, but I just want to get straight into it. So with me today, I've got Russell Bennett, the visionary CEO and founder of Metacade, a powerful platform that bridges the gap between developers and players, fostering a collaborative ecosystem. Eva Shalenko, who is a biz dev startup advisor and chief BDO at Clanium, Web3 gaming aggregator that offers a comprehensive suite of services, including profiles and wallets, reshaping how we engage with the gaming world. I've got Nico Rodriguez here, enterprising CEO of Starkplay, mastermind behind Cafe Cosmos, a venture that claims to have unlocked the true potential of play to earn, and Alex Alamri, neurosurgeon by day and by night, dynamic CEO and founder of hundreds and thousands, trailblazing Web3 gaming brand with bold ambitions. Let's dive right in. So, I mentioned at the top the central topic, are we teetering on the edge of the precipice? Has GameFi killed Web3 gaming? What I'd love to do is get a little bit of engagement from the audience. Is anyone up for a show of hands? Okay, cool, we got it. So I'd love, if people could raise their hands let's put it this way. Is the push for Web3 in gaming driven more by innovation, raise hands, or profit, keep hands down? Interesting. So I feel like we have maybe a skeptical audience. And myself, as I mentioned, coming from a AAA games development background, I'm a bit of a skeptic myself, I'm a purist when it comes to games. I believe they're an art form, and I believe that they're about storytelling and immersion and social connection, all of these kind of things. Also being a parent and a founder, I'm very busy. I don't have a lot of time to play games, and so perhaps I'm more drawn to the kind of the blockbuster end of the spectrum. But in any case, let's dive into it with some people who are much more knowledgeable about this subject than me. So my first question is simple. What is Web3 gaming without GameFi? Without the financial aspect, what are the actual benefits for players beyond capital gain? And I would love to address this first to Nico.
All right. Okay. I would say that there is no separation possible to be made between any product on blockchain and finance. At the most bottom level, you're dealing with gas fee markets, right? So it's always going to be finance, right? Whatever we build on top of it, saying it's not finance is like essentially a scam, right? We're saying that an NFT is somehow not financial when it's a token that anybody can exchange on a peer-to-peer market. That is purely financial. The exchange, the economic value transfer is always going to be financial. So blockchain actually serves two purposes, right? We have one, which is a financial market, which anybody can operate on, anybody can access. And the other is censorship resistance. We have a censorship-resistant internet, right? Which is extremely dangerous, right? To a few select people who would really not like that, right? And so what happens is that we can either have two things, right? We have censorship resistance or finance. For example, what is the the most mainstream argument for Web3 games? It's, oh, what happens if you get banned and then all your skins are gone? Well, here's the question. Why would you get banned, right? Why would you get banned, right? You have to be doing something that pisses someone off, right? And therefore, that's where censorship resistance is important. The other thing is how you can trade assets, right? So that is where the financial component comes in. So just to be brief, just because reckless and careless token design absolutely destroyed not only GameFi, but hey, it also destroyed the entire crypto industry about a year ago, where we basically formulated giant Ponzi's to generate massive amounts of revenue, which, by the way, the crypto industry is its entire purpose is to generate massive amounts of revenue. That is exactly why everyone here is in this room, you know? Tickets to events like this are expensive. It's to generate huge amounts of revenue that you can't generate anywhere else. Why? Because it's a market that anybody in the world can access, right? And that's much easier to access than something like NASDAQ, right? So, yeah.
I'm going to round you off there. That's very, very good. Yes, indeed. And yeah, hopefully it generates huge amounts of revenue. I'm half joking there. Eva, can you pick up on that as well? What, in your opinion, can Web3 gaming exist without GameFi?
No. So I would see this, I would answer this question from a little bit another perspective. So at the moment, we have two targeted audience of gamers. Web3 gamers that went from what background? They all are crypto fans, traders, and whatever. So they will not be in charge of gaming, Web3 gaming projects if they cannot have that financial aspect. And we have another targeted audience, Web2 gamers, that all Web3 games want to like their shift to the Web3. They don't like crypto. They're afraid of that, and the only thing that they want to have, this is entertainment. And if you get rid of the Web3 stuff from the Web3 gaming, it will be traditional Web2 gaming. So it depends what you want to have. But I would totally agree with the previous speaker that if we want to keep Web3 gaming, we cannot get rid of the blockchain and all of that Web3 stuff. Definitely. But at the same time, a little bit diving deeper in that, at the same time, if we want to engage Web2 gamers into Web3, we need at least to educate them somehow or make that shift very seamless. Because like during my work, I'm now in active communication with more than 300 games, talking with them what are they doing with user engagement, retaining, and so on. And the main bottleneck is that Web3 games really sucks in their gameplay, unfortunately, because they definitely are not for gaming. They're for earning money. That's interesting. And therefore, again, answering your question, we cannot get rid of the blockchain and all of that gamify stuff if we want to keep Web3 gaming.
Well, thanks very much. It's interesting that you're both in alignment there. Before we move on to the next question, I'd love to ask Alex or Russell, do you guys have a contradictory opinion? Do you believe that there are benefits to blockchain technology being introduced in games beyond the financial aspect? Or should we move on? Yeah, go on, Alex.
Right, so I believe that part of that issue is obviously fueled by bull-run Ponzi schemes and all the stuff that we don't want to get into because everyone's scarred and has PTSD from it. But it also comes from the fact that within Web3 and even within traditional gaming, people equate gaming with AAA. They equate gaming with World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, skins, CSGO skins. Let's talk about skins. Okay, fine. But when we just had this talk about token-gated musicians beforehand, and we look at the creator economy and we talk about Patreon, and we talk about how can gamers come closer to their creators of the games, that's where I think the true benefit of Web3 technology, or blockchain technology, can come through. I'm going to stop you there because we actually, one of the later questions, which is directed to you, does allude to that. So I'm just going to stop you there, but because we're going to come right back around to that. So let me lead on then into the second question. And Russell, I'd love for you to pick this up. Do you believe that play-to-earn models are inherently exploitative, and is there a solution?
If we were basing it on the run we've just seen, I would say I would lean definitely towards more exploitative, purely and simply because it comes down to the underlying question, which is, what are you earning? If you're earning an asset or token which has extreme volatility and is reliant on speculative income, buckle up, Buttercup, because that's going to be an interesting ride. If you're earning status, access, something with stability, everything wrapped around ownership, then you've got a fighting chance of building an asset model, I wouldn't say a token model, in-game that would really produce some great outcomes. And I think we are seeing the early signs of that in preparation for next year. The underlying pressure we have as an industry is we work in these almost World Cup cycles where 3 to 4 years, everyone rushes in, everyone's building, everyone speculates, everyone gets out, and the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. So in that sense, I feel that play to earn will evolve and mature. If we're basing it on the previous run, it was the perfect sandbox of testing ideas and wrapping features and benefits into games, in many cases unnecessarily. And yeah, if you're on the right side of it, it's fantastic, but a game isn't meant to be a speculative asset at the end of the day. So I do very much sit in both camps on that one.
That's interesting, thank you. Yeah, I think we're kind of talking around this point of when we're talking about Web3 games, are we talking about Web3 vehicles dressed up as a game, or it's like another way to interact with essentially DeFi in that way? Interesting. Nico, I would love for you to pick that up if you don't mind. What's your view on that? Are play-to-earn models inherently exploitative, and is there a solution?
Yeah, there's totally a solution. See, okay, last market, what happened is we had the market essentially favored liquidity providers and VCs essentially favored game developers coming from different industries into Web3 and trying to ghetto rig a model for earning, right? And what that is essentially a parody of DeFi, right? We had like CeFi at best, casinos in which the house was always losing and players winning until they weren't. Right? So just because our last play-to-earn models were made by people with extremely minimal token design knowledge, such that it completely parodied what a token design is supposed to even be, doesn't mean that it's inherently not going to work or something that we shouldn't study or research with actual thought behind it. You know, I appreciate the experiments, but the way I see it is, you know, yeah, GameFi was Ponzi schemes and crashed, but like you should be afraid of GameFi just as much as you should be afraid of Bitcoin because of FTX, right? It's not correlated with the technology stack. It's more irresponsible engineering, I think. But I think it's going to be inevitable that we use tokens, and I don't think that access rights to things are exactly stable. I mean, all you have to do is stop that thing from organizing other things, and then you no longer have access rights to anything, right? I mean, look at the full send meta card, right? Or, you know, it's like, what access do you have to anything of that? It's always going to be speculative, right? As long as it's on blockchain. Everything is speculative. Whether something is exploitive is really just a question of, is capitalism exploitive? And I mean, in my view, capitalism is such a fantastic system because the other options are way more exploitive.
Interesting. And what about from our other speakers? Do you have anything you wanted to add to that point around the inherent exploitative nature or otherwise of play-to-earn models?
Well, I think that one of the main problems with the point there is that if you've got inherently poor engineering, we've had double the damage done because you have the exploitation of the crypto space in GameFi that has made everybody else in the world think that it's a Ponzi scheme. May or may not be in some respects, and that's fine. But at the same time, if you look at traditional games, take Cyberpunk, okay? That was massively hyped. You had Keanu Reeves as the face of it. It looked like it was going to be a fantastic game. It was launched, and it was shit, okay? And traditional gamers used their voices to make that known, okay? And what happened was the reputation and fame of that publishing house was destroyed. And they're still trying to claw it back a year later. We've had that in GameFi or Web3 Gaming because not only were we already seen as a Ponzi scheme, but we were also seen as a bunch of publishing houses that couldn't make good games. So we're dealing with double damage from that. So we can't just look at it as clawing back our reputation purely from Ponzinomics, but also the fact that the people that were making the games before were not game designers, they were not indie developers or AAA studios, and the AAA studios that came in to make games left as soon as they entered, pretty much, or they're really struggling to push things out now. I mean, just look at Sega. Oh, we love blockchain, we love Web3. Oh, actually, we've had a look at it and we think it's shit, we're not gonna invest in it. Sorry, lads, bye. You know, so we are really, really going to struggle over the coming years to build that reputation back up. So we have to think about it on two sides.
And yet this week, so very, very interesting. I was actually working with somebody who was, we used to work together, and they went on to go to work for, who's the publisher of CD Projekt? It's not Bandai Namco, who published Cyberpunk. And what's fascinating is like that was so extolled as like this massive scandal and everything. It's incredibly successful, that game. Like it earned so much money, and like the percentage of refunds or returns that came on was just like completely insignificant. So like, why wouldn't they do that again? I think that's a very, very fair point that you make there, Alex, about drawing those analogs. And I was thinking earlier, I can't remember which speaker it was, but one of the points around, or to go back to that first question, can we separate them? Like, to what extent can we separate gaming from finance? Like, ultimately, it's pay to play, even since the earliest days, since arcade machines. Like, there is a financial thing there. It's just kind of resetting the status quo or looking at another way. Your point leads me nicely into the third question that I have, which is highly relevant for yourself. Go on then.
Okay. Here's the thing. I think it's absurd to think that we're going to have a decentralized market and we're not going to have people trying to make money. We have places with extreme poverty all around the world that, $1 or $100 to them is such a great amount. They can launch a game. Sure, it's Ponzonomic, but they're making $1 million. That's generational wealth in the Philippines or in Thailand or wherever, right? Of course, I'm like the #1 person against Ponzi-nomic schemes, but that's what comes with the decentralized system. We can't police what people are releasing or not, right? And I think the reason why game studios are leaving, well, one thing is like, I think this last bull market was a giant SEC honeypot, right? I mean, why would Ubisoft want to release NFTs and then be sued for securities crimes, right? So I think it's pretty clear. I mean, who is left then? Who's left that's so risk adverse? It's indie game developers. Sure, some are in it for the money, but hey, aren't we all, right? To some extent, what we were doing this for free.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that all the way. I mean, this week, Take-Two, publisher of GTA, released through their mobile division, Zynga, I think it's called Sugartown, this mobile game that's already, even in the first 2 days of trading, $5 million on OpenSea trading volume. So, like, I think there is interest, I think, from AAA games. I think they're just trying to understand how best to do it. It's funny. Just as a brief diversion, the very first time I heard the term Metaverse was in 2016 at Steam Dev Days in San Diego, and it was Tim Sweeney, who's the CEO of Epic Games, Fortnite, talking about the Metaverse. He was saying on stage in front of this room of people, like, there will come a time in our lives when a Lamborghini in a virtual space is worth more than a Lamborghini in the real space, in the real world, because you can do more with it. It's a more powerful tool for social expression. And at the time, I was like, sure, whatever. This was years before Fortnite was ever even released or anything like that. But I think it's really interesting. And as I say, like, maybe you can't extricate finance from gaming or is money always going to be inherent in art and enjoyment and entertainment and stuff like that? But it's interesting that, like, there's no blockchain aspect to, and I'm going to come on to this in my last question, but like, Fortnite generates a lot of money every year. It's a free-to-play game. And that money is just going to Epic, and there's no secondary market or anything like that. And like, what would the incentive for them be to do something different? But we can talk about that in a little bit. Let me move on. Sorry, Russ, did you have a point?
Yeah, I think we need to be careful with the referencing of Ponzi-nomics, because if anyone's ever sat down and actually tried to design an economy within a game or an asset, it's kind of an art form, and it's borderline impossible in most cases. So I think we have to understand that the first wave of this industry was very much a big exploration. A lot of people with the best intentions went out to build a really strong economy within their games. Most failed, but well done for trying. Unless you literally rugged it, then you deserve everything you get. But the economics within a game is, I would say, borderline impossible where an asset is volatile. So if it's asset-based and there's a really strong economy built around that, i.e. business economics inside of a game, like one of our partners, you can build your businesses, you can charge for services. Those things work, and that's, I think, where we're going to emerge next. But as soon as the token is pulled out of the game, life becomes a lot easier, in my opinion. So I think we're moving to a token wraparound economy, with the game being primarily an asset market, with some sensible economics in there. If you achieve that, I think you'll have something sustainable that's not reliant on bull runs, bear runs, etc. I think you've got something which you can generally grow on. So I think we just have to accept that it was a really good first attempt, but I think the industry is learning very, very quickly now.
Hear, hear. All right, let me move on to the next question then, just conscious of time. I'm going to put this to you first, Alex. To what extent can the inclusion of Web3 technologies improve or hinder game development for developers and studios?
Okay, so it's a broad question, but it kind of leads about what you chaps were saying about the extrication of value and the inherent extrication of value in DeFi and on the blockchain. Now, you say that you can't control that, but actually as a game developer you can. You definitely can, because that's part of your game design. You know, when you talk about the simulation of real-world economies with a token, I mean, it's a fantastic idea. Why would you not want to do some kind of tycoon game on mobile where you own your token and, you know, it's extremely volatile and, you know, you can just simulate what happens and you can either cash out or you don't have to cash out. Nobody tries to do that because it's bloody hard, as you mentioned. Creating a token is like running a real-world economy. It's extremely fluctuant. It requires a huge amount of experience. And even with the best experience in the world, as you can see from our own macroeconomics, it doesn't work all the time. So why would you make a game around that? As an indie developer, and we are a very small, agile group, there's only 6 of us, and we're making games for gamers with Web3 enablement. But from our perspective, we take the Reddit approach, which is the Trojan Horse approach. That is the create the wallets in the background, give people the options to trade in the background, but you don't tell them, and you bring it in slowly. And if they want to do that, they can do that. But the games we design are not based on Web3. Web3 is for enablement. We want to use the music scene's token-gated economy as a kind of model where if we're creating small indie games that become cult classics and people want to be able to go to a token-gated event or collect some merchandise that's part of our kind of Cult of the Lamb style game, they can do that. And if they want to trade their passes, they can, if they want to, but they don't need to be pushed to do it. There's certainly not going to be any incentivization for them to do that. But it's like having a Clash of Clans login and spending 3 years having it on your mobile and getting 10,000 gems and wanting to sell it on eBay. I don't want to give somebody my Google sign-in credentials to sell it to them for 100 quid. But I would like them to be able to buy it from me because I put a lot of time and effort into it. But really, the way I see it is that as an indie developer, you need to be focusing on, I'd hesitate to say it, but community and creator economies, and allowing a way for gamers and communities to come a bit closer to that studio, to feel a bit more involved, and to have a bit more skin in the game. That's why people like Devolver Digital went from a small game studio to to being on the stock market, essentially, and publishing all the best indie games in the world. They're trusted. They trust, creators trust them, indie developers love them, and they're great to work with because they understand that that is the ethos that needs to be fostered. It's nothing to do with incentivization of token models.
Big fan of Devolver. And perhaps in that way, then it's something more to do with a reframing around what we're actually focusing on, and the reasons for playing games in the first place is that they should be enjoyable and rewarding, and that rewarding doesn't have to stop at just the entertainment factor. Exactly. I suppose is what we're coming to, which leads me quite nicely onto Russell. I would love to hear your take on that same question, which is, as somebody who works with IP holders and studios through Metacade, to what extent can the inclusion of these technologies help or hinder development and publishing?
So if we start with the hindering, I think we're all aware that there's a series of friction areas of onboarding gamers into the Web3 space, whether it's wallets, gas, which chain you're on. You don't want to set a game up before the game if you want adoption on your platform. So I think we're moving from, I would say, a wave of features and benefits of the blockchain being wrapped into a game, into the blockchain becoming the facilitating platform for just genuine game evolvement. For example, the way we approach it is, I call it the excitable rush internally, but we've all rushed towards using every element of the blockchain it possibly has to have and selling consumers on the features of that. We simply go to games who are on-chain and say, give us your off-chain version, which is fun. Let's get adoption. Let's build a community around that game. And then we'll re-educate people back onto chain at a later date. So whether that's a social sign-up wallet, a gasless environment, those things aren't meant to be the quiz that gates your game. Don't worry about that for now. Let the blockchain do its thing, control ownership, allow the project to scale, build interesting economies within it. But certainly don't put the wall up this time round. Give us the off-chain version, and we will build that community. As soon as they're fans, as Tommy D said in the previous chat, it's very easy to kind of learn to earn or educate people through quests on-chain. And that becomes a lot more fun than the prospect that we faced last time round. So I think it has a huge place in the future of gaming, but I also think it needs to get out the way as well. And let's get back to what we're here to do, and that is to create really great products and games and make sure that the communities rave about them. As soon as you achieve that and that momentum, you can start educating people on chain. I don't believe it's wholly possible beforehand.
I wanted this to be a debate, but I couldn't agree with you more. And obviously, full disclosure.
I disagree with what I just said, by the way.
All of you are wrong. I have been working in my capacity as chief creative at Flight 3, been working with yourself. I'm fortunate enough to be working with yourself and Metacade, and that's exactly the kind of conversations we've been having about kind of burying the lead a little bit. And you mentioned the Trojan Horse. Reddit does you get all the way through to Reddit, and it's not mentioned once like you're doing this. And I think that's something that we, as an industry, need to take note of. We talked about it a lot in gaming, this idea of inside out versus outside in thinking. Like when I'm working on Total War, I'm in the studio every day, we're talking about Total War, we're like, oh, they're going to be so interested about this +3 bonus to whatever. And then you've got to remember, like, this person has their whole other life, and you're coming in and telling them about some menial little change. And I think my co-founder and CEO, Harry, he always says, when people talk about like what blockchain you're kind of like aligned with or like what you're holding with, it's the equivalent of being like, are you on Amazon Web Servers when someone tells you what their business does? And it's kind of like we're so victim to that because we're all kind of, we've all drunk a little bit of the Kool-Aid, if you see what I mean. I wanted to make just one point before I move on to my fourth question, which is this idea of kind of like regulation and facilitation. And I just kind of had this while we were having the conversation, this idea that if people want to buy and sell assets, or it was you talking about Clash of Clans accounts, like it's going to happen, you know? It's like narcotics in this country. It's like they can be as criminal as you like. It's not going to stop the sale and the trade of them. So in that way, maybe it is less exploitative, or maybe it is facilitating that if you can white market these things and say, we're going to just take a little fee on this, but we're going to allow you to fully do it. You have ownership of it. We don't. Awesome. Well, thanks very much. I have another question. I'm going to hand it to you, Eva. I would love to know your thoughts. I know this is quite a broad one, but like looking ahead, we've spoken about AAA and about indie and about Web3 as GameFi and that being inextricable from one another. What do you think the future looks like for Web3 gaming?
If to say it in several words, I think that we're waiting for a very huge replacement. And if to explain it a bit, what about the replacement? So all Web3 games that are now, practically all of them, they're shitty in their gameplay. They're shitty in their, gaming mechanics. People don't like them. Getting back to the point about fun and having entertainment, and it should be like the first priority. But at the same time, we see how Web2 games who know how to make the game funny, how to engage and retain users, gamers, in their games, they're starting thinking, at least thinking about shifting to the Web3. So the replacement that I'm talking about, that unfortunately, my opinion, from like business perspective, as we discussed during like preparation, that I'm mostly from not gamers but business perspective, games that are now Web3 and they are started developing from Web3 from the scratch, they will disappear or die, like point the word that you like more. And Web2 games, especially AAA Web2 games, they will shift to the Web3 and they will like take their user database from their Web2 game to the Web3. And they will make that shift for the gamers very seamless and exactly as you're told, that Web3 stuff will be additional thing. They will not make people use it from the start. Only if a person want to use that, and they will incentivize, educate, and so on. So that is what I see now, unfortunately. So, because when you have a Web3 studio gaming, that's okay. But usually all developers there are from Web3 space, and they know how to develop all about blockchain, smart contracts, and all of that stuff. But they definitely don't know how to create a funny game that will be for entertainment. Or possibly another option that can be the same replacement as I told, plus there will still be exactly gamified projects that are not about the fun, that are about earning money and trading.
Yeah.
That's also an option.
I think that's interesting. That's interesting. That's the one thing I said I didn't want to keep saying on this panel. Where I guess it just keeps it's just default, isn't it? But you, Alex, you kept talking about this term like empowered or like Web3 enabled, Web3 empowered, which I think is interesting. Jeez, can't look at me. About having this as kind of like an optional add-on, like make the game good. And then there's this if you want to play with it. As I say, like if you want to play CSGO and you want to sell this very rare weapon skin, you can do that, black market, and those workarounds, buy someone's Google Mail account or whatever it is. But let's find a different way to empower that. Nico, I would love to hear your idea on the future. Obviously, you've got a lot of skin in the game here.
Yeah, I would like to disagree with the last two speakers.
Please.
On everything that was said. Here's the problem. Here is the fallacy of Web3. It's the biggest fallacy of all, okay? It is this next billion users fallacy, all right? We can't even onboard our own users in Web3. We're supposed to be onboarding the next billion. And that's where friend tech goes right? That's where onboarding crypto natives works. Why are people coming into Web3? Speculation and prices. That's why every bull run, the conferences grow. And we grow too, right? And even our bear market population grows as well, right? So if this is the case, if speculation is what is bringing people in, and then we are essentially bringing those people through actual usage of our products, let's do that, right? We don't have to like, just be like, all right, here, mainstream public, we're gonna slow you into Web3. It's like, dude, nobody wants that, right? Look at Primordium, okay? Look at fully on-chain games. Look at Lattice out of here in London. These guys are building fully on-chain games that could only exist because of Web3, right? They're not forcing Web3 in through some way and then, also a side effect, raising their valuation. No, we're building games that are completely decentralized, right? And that, I think, is actual fun gameplay. So saying that gameplay is not fun, well, I just think that's ridiculous. And I actually think that's a bit ignorant, too, because there are games such as Primordium, many fully on-chain games, autonomous worlds, that are just completely wiping the floor with actual fun gameplay, thanks to decentralization, not using decentralization as a prop for valuation, exponential growth.
Well, let's separate those. I hear, I should say. I like that. Love the energy. But let's separate those ideas out a little bit, because we had Alex talking about this idea of the Trojan Horse, Reddit. This is a company where it doesn't mention blockchain technology. It's being very user-friendly, and that's what's that $36 million market cap NFT set that is there on one of the world's most popular social media platforms. So are you saying that you disagree with the idea that we should be, or that gamers should, or Web3 enthusiasts or Web3 focused developers should be using gaming to stealth inject blockchain technologies into broader market adoption? It kind of sounded like you were saying that we should just focus on people know what they want, give them what they want.
And just as a PS, guys, we need to wrap it up. So
I think actually we're doing all right. So Eva, did you have a counterpoint you wanted to make to that?
Just one word, because we need to wrap up. Web3 games are really pushing to use all Web3 stuff, because look at practically every second game. Happily, every second game. If you want to start using that, you need at least to install their wallet or use your wallet, whatever. You are not pushed to buy NFTs, assets, or whatever, but from the very scratch, you need to have their wallet or use. Yeah, look, let's talk about that.
Account abstraction.
I will show you the list of them.
I think. Sorry. Go on, Russ. I think from a small indie studio's perspective, we're not trying to onboard the next billion gamers. It's out of our realm and out of our scope. But if we have a game studio that is a combination of Web3 natives and Web2 game designers and makers, and we all believe in Web3, again, we're not trying to mass adopt the world, but we want to inject Web3 and blockchain technology into our games. But because of everything that's happened, you have to do it slowly and steadily. And that's not going to be with fully on-chain games. I'm sorry, we'll have to disagree there.
The counter-argument to that, I think, and Nico prompted me, I was fortunate enough to go to Korea Blockchain Week, and the underlying shift that's going on in blockchain gaming is about autonomous worlds. Utilizing the blockchain to truly create through your audience and your fans, and the sheer decentralization and creation element of autonomous worlds, I believe, will be the landslide shift for next year. There's a huge group building in Asia, particularly at the moment. This movement is starting to happen in Europe. I do think that's probably the best use case. If you're not going to hide it and inject it slowly into people, as we've discussed, I think that's the out and front. We're building on this, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think there's 2 or 3 interesting phases we're about to enter in the next 6 to 9 months.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I found that fascinating. Nico, you want to just closing remark?
I have one more point. Look.
Let's have it.
On the point said about fully on-chain gaming, I would like to say this. Let's meet here in 1 year and see what happened.
Well, that sounds like a rebook. Zebu Live 2024. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to my speakers. I found that very enjoyable. Little rousing debate. Thanks very much.